Going live right now, Yisrael. Hey, okay. Excellent. All right. So welcome, everyone. We've been doing these classes 10:30 in the morning every day this week. This is, as mentioned, the beginning of the week. Mondays 10:30 is the Chassidus class at Chabad of the Five Towns, and because of our current situation, we are increasing. We're doing even more than that. We made the class every single day of the week. We've been doing it on Zoom. Today we're trying it on YouTube. I think the platform's just a little bit more stable. So there's a little bit less interaction, but you can still participate through the live chat. If you look, there is an option off to the side. I think it should be off to the right side to do live chat. And you can type in your questions, your comments, whatever it might be. Oh, you know what? Does everyone have access to this? Maybe could somebody just put a little hello or something in the chat just so I can see that it actually works. It's off to the right side. Should be off to the right side. Anybody? Oh, okay, great. Hi. Excellent. Thank you. Okay. And also, I will make my appeal. YouTube has a funny rule that in order to have live streaming from a mobile device, this is my laptop here, but to live stream from a mobile device, you need to have 1,000 subscribers. So I realized that a few days ago, and I've been pushing and campaigning to raise the subscription subscription rate. But we started with about 450 a few days ago, and we've gotten over 400 subscribers in the past few days, literally just past 3 days. We're still a little bit short. So if you haven't yet subscribed, help us to get to that 1,000 so we can live stream from a mobile device. It'll just help us to do more of these kinds of live learning events, especially during this time when the live learning is so important. So if you just look, should be right there on your screen. Below the video player should be, I think it's a red button, says subscribe. If you're not subscribed, the button will be there. Just hit subscribe, boom, and we should be able to hit our 1,000 mark soon. Okay, thank you for that. Here's my coffee. 1 second. I'm going to make a bracha. Okay. Well, happy new month, Rosh Chodesh. Today is not just any Rosh Chodesh. Today is the very first Rosh Chodesh, because on this very day, over 3,300 years ago, Hashem told Moshe Rabbeinu, while the Jews were still in Egypt, the first mitzvah of the Torah, which is this month, meaning the month of Nisan, shall be for you the first of all months, and that you should sanctify the first of the months, meaning the birth of the new moon, by celebrating Rosh Chodesh and marking that as the first day of a month, meaning the Jewish calendar, and that started on this very day. So this is, in certain ways, the beginning of time. We had a class last night, a live class, also for Chabad of the Five Towns. If you're interested, we spoke all about how today's date, the first day of the month of Nisan, is an alternate Rosh Hashanah. There's the Rosh Hashanah that we're all familiar with in the autumn, but this is also equally a Rosh Hashanah, the Rosh Hashanah in the springtime. And you can watch that class that was uploaded That was streamed live, and then the live stream was available for replay immediately after. That's on our channel as well, so check it out. Also, tonight is going to be another live stream event for the occasion of Beis Nisan. Beis Nisan means the second day of the month of Nisan. That is the Yortzeit, the anniversary of the passing of the fifth Chabad Rebbe, Shalom Dov Ber. And in fact, it is the 100th Yortzeit, 100 years since his passing in 1920, obviously. So what I want to do today, if you will indulge me, is I wanted to study something. This is going to be text-based. We'll see how this goes. A Sicha, a talk that was given by the Rebbe about the circumstances surrounding the passing of the fifth Rebbe, whose Yortzeit, as I mentioned, is tonight and tomorrow. I will be talking about some of this at tonight's class, so consider this, what we're doing right now, sort of like a deeper, more in-depth version of that. Okay, so let's try it out. I'm actually learning a Sicha from Likutei Sichas Chelek Chav Zayin, volume 27, which is in Yiddish. And what I'm going to do, just for fun over here, is I'm going to paste the link in the chat. Okay, so you have there clickable link to Hebrew Books, which is an absolute treasure trove. Hebrew Books has thousands, tens of thousands of holy Sfarim, and that link is to the Sicha in Likutei Sichas. Okay. So you see, if you click on it. If not, it's fine. I'm going to read everything. It says, and it might be hard for you to go back and forth between the video and the Sicha, although if you have a big enough screen, you could probably figure out how to put one window here and another window over there. Okay, I'll leave that to the pros. So it says the Sicha is from Beis Nisan. That's the title, second day of the month of Nisan. And in the asterisk, it indicates that this is the day of the passing of the Rebbe Rashab on second day of Nisan, Tafresh Pei, 5680, which is 1920. It says for a more detailed biography, you should see the book Chanoich Lenar, which is actually an ethical will written by the Rebbe Rashab when he thought he was going to pass away. He earlier, not during the time when he actually did, but when he was younger, he was ill, and he wrote a sort of ethical will, instructions about the education of his only child, who was eventually his successor. So when that was printed, it was called Chanech Lenar, the education of the child, and there was a little biography of the Rebbe Rashab that was included in that. Okay, so if you want the biography of the Rebbe Rashab, that's where to look. All right. Es ist Yadua, was Kved Kedushes Admon Rashab Nishmas Eiden hat gesagt, Shois Achades Lifnei Stalkusei. It is known what the Rebbe Rashab said moments or hours before his passing. And the footnote number 1 says that this was preserved for us in a letter written by the elders of the community at the time, and was printed later in a book of letters of the previous Rebbe. Okay, what was the statement that the Rebbe Rashab made hours before his passing? He said, "Ich gehe in Himmel. I'm going in heaven. Die Ksavim, the manuscripts, los ich euch, I'm leaving for you. Manuscripts means thousands of handwritten works of Hasidic teachings from the Rebbe Rashab and his forebearers and predecessors. Generations of handwritten Hasidic works which were amassed as the treasure trove, the literal treasure trove of the house of the Rebbe over from the time of the inception of the movement of Chabad, and particularly the 102 years that the movement was based in Lubavitch. And the Rebbe Rashab had to leave because of World War I and the fighting. He had to relocate. He had to leave Lubavitch after 102 years of Chabad being in Lubavitch. And he went to a town called Rostov, which was farther from the fighting. So when he left, he brought with him his manuscripts. Now, unfortunately, these are largely still held in Russia by the Russian government, and there have been legal attempts to get the manuscripts to America, and this has been ongoing for, the Rebbe made a big push for this in the 90s, and it's been ongoing since then. At any rate, a few hours before his passing, the Rebbe Rashab said, I'm going to heaven now, and I'm leaving you the manuscripts. Okay. Mahot shin geret kama pamim. The Rebbe says, we've spoken many times on other occasions, meaning, as yesh leimer dem pirishin dem, as durch die ksavim hat men noch mehr mahatem wie gefindt sich in Himmel. Through the manuscripts, we have him, and not only we have him as he is in heaven. Why? Why is that so? Varum, because tzadikim demim lebeiram, the Medrash says that tzadikim, the righteous, resemble their creator, und der Rebbe, therefore. Shame, wie der Eibishter hat kviyochel sich hereingegeben in Teira, wie der Pirische Yadua in Maimer Chazal an non Nafshi Ksavis Yehovis, der Eibishter hat sich allein Nafshi hereingeschrieben und hereingegeben in Teira, just like Hashem put himself in Teira. As we know, the word Anochi, I, is an acronym for Anon Nafshi Ksavis Yehovis. I have written myself and given myself through Torah, just like Hashem put himself into Torah. Was der Far is der Torah, is durch Torah, I see a atem like him, and therefore, when you learn Torah, when you take Torah, you're not just taking Torah, you're taking Hashem. Hashem says, you are taking me. So Torah is not just a book written by Hashem. Torah is Hashem given through the book. Is al derech zeh bei tzadikim. So a similar concept with tzadikim. As they geben sich herein in die Inyani Torah, was they haben gelernt. Tzadikim give themselves into the Torah that they taught. Ubefrat, was they haben mechadish gewen, especially innovative concepts which they came up with. Und der Far, durch Limud Teirasim, verbindt man sich mit sie allein. Therefore, when you learn their Torah, you're connecting yourself with them, with their very selves. Okay. That's the end of chapter 1. So, just to review, a few hours before his passing, the Rebbe Rashab said, I'm going to heaven now, I'm leaving you the manuscripts. The Rebbe says, we've spoken about before, and in other sichas, the sichas were all spoken at Fabrengens, by and large, so at other gatherings, we've spoken about the idea that when you have the Torah teachings of the tzaddik, you have the tzaddik. And not just the way the tzaddik is or was, but the way the tzaddik is now on their exalted plane in heaven. And why is this? Because just like Hashem, when Hashem gave us the Torah, Hashem did not just give us Torah, Hashem gave us Himself through Torah, so too tzaddikim have this ability through their Torah, through their teachings. They're not just telling us something they want us to know. They're giving us themselves through this medium of transfer called their teachings. So it's an actual personal connection. Learning the Torah of a tzaddik isn't just knowing something the tzaddik said. It's knowing the tzaddik. Okay. Is base, chapter 2. This is everything's going okay? Everyone's all right? Okay. Figure once in a while it's good to learn Yiddish Sicha inside the text and to have that experience. Okay, chapter 2. Vergleichen dich dem Loschen von Rebbe, nicht Maseiden, mit dem Loschen Chazal Hanal, B'kesher l'matan Torah. Zat min hashinoi. If you compare the expression that the Rebbe Rashab used with the expression that our sages used, that we mentioned before, regarding Hashem, you see there's a difference. In Chazal is there Lashon Yehovis, a Lashon Nesina. The saying of our sages is Hashem says, I wrote myself and I gave myself through Torah. I gave myself. Mashen came der Rebbe, Nishmas Eiden, hat gesagt, ich sag mir lasse euch. Rebbe Rashab says, I'm leaving you the manuscripts. So the expression from our sages is Hashem gave himself through Torah. But the expression that the Rebbe Rashab used was, I'm leaving you the manuscripts. What's the difference between giving and leaving? Der Tam of them yeshleime lechaira, while das is behesem mit matzav demelt, shoyes achadis lifneis talkusei zu welchen es passt der Lashon laws, wie man gefindt in Halacha bei matnes Schrivmera der Lashon ani maniach. So a simple answer would be that this formulation is a familiar formulation, meaning that using the word I leave, in Yiddish laws, but in Hebrew it would be maniach, means the same thing, I leave. That is a familiar formulation that's used regarding the gifts of a person on their deathbed, a deathbed bequest. There's, without getting into this too much in detail, but there is a special halachic status to gifts that are made by someone on their deathbed. And that way of conferring that gift is with the word maniach. I leave. I hereby leave. Or sometimes ani oizev. Which literally means I relinquish, or even I abandon. Aber al pi maduber kam upon wegen dem Gedel adiak in Pisgami Rabbeinu Nisieno, weil der Diok ist nicht nur mit Zeit Techna Makloli, nor euch in jeden Wort und Ausdruck. However, according to everything we know, and we've said many times about the incredible precision of every saying of the Rebbeim, that everything they said was extremely precise, not just the teuchen, not just the meaning, meaning the overall meaning, but the word choice, the diction. And it's interesting, we're saying even at the last moments of the Rebbe Rashab, before he was passing away, we can still attribute to him absolute precision in every word choice. So according to what we know about the absolute precision of diction of the Rebbeim, is mistaber loimer as der dia kaloshen lozichaich. It's logical to say that the fact that he chose to say, I leave you, is nicht nur mitzad a Zeitik in Inyan, mitzad dem Matzav bei welchen das ist gesagt geworden. It can't just be, it doesn't make sense to say it's only because of a circumstantial factor. meaning because he was in the situation of a shchivmera, someone who makes a deathbed bequest, so therefore he used that word of that formulation. Nor das is negea euch zum Teuchen ho Inyan, was der Rebbe Nishmas Eden hat gewollt reisbringen. Rather, we have to say, we're about to turn to the page, that the word choice was actually specifically linked to the very idea that he wanted to bring out in dem Piskum, in that saying, as durch lernen seine Ksovim nemt minim allein canal, that somehow choosing this word, I leave you, I hereby leave you, was more fitting to expressing the idea that we mentioned before, that through studying the teachings of a tzaddik, one connects not just to the teachings, but to the tzaddik himself. Okay, end of chapter 2. If there are any questions, comments, you can type in the live chat. Okay, we're going to continue here. Chapter 3. Der Chiluk zwischen die zwei Lashonos Hanal, Yehavis, Nesino, and Loz. What's the difference between the two expressions? I'm giving and I'm leaving. Nesina is madgish as die Zach kommt on zu Mekabel, Mekeach HaNesi. When you use the expression giving, it means that the transfer is happening because of the power of the giver. It says, Nit muchrach kein pu'ula mitzad mekabel of zu bakumen di matana. The recipient doesn't have to do anything. It's actually completely unilateral. The giver is active, the recipient is passive. We're speaking legally here as well. Masha Enkin, in contrast, laws meant when you leave something, what does that mean? Adernesin git blois die afsharius as der zweite soll as kennen nehmen. The giver is only making it possible that the recipient can take it. Kdei aber as das soll bepeil ankommen zum zweiten in der Schuss. However, for the recipient to actually take it into his ownership, muss jener das allein nehmen, he has to take it al yidei pu'lase, through some type of action. Okay, so very simple. When you give something, that transfer happens without the recipient doing anything. When you leave something, you're making it available for acquisition, but the recipient has to go take it, have to go lay claim to it. Die zwei Efanim, Nesino and Laws, gefindt men dugmasam in Limud HaTorah. Interestingly, we find these two concepts of giving and leaving in our study of Torah. Die Chazal sagen, Betchila nikras Torah al Shmei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'Teres Hashem cheftzei. Our sages point out, this is a Gemara in Kiddushin. Our sages point out, actually, it says here the Gemara is in Avodah Zarah, but a similar Gemara exists in Kiddushin. It's talking about whether or not a Torah scholar can forego the honor that's due to him. So in Kiddushin, at least it is. The idea is you're supposed to honor a Torah scholar, but can he forego the honor? Well, maybe he's not allowed to because it's not his honor, it's Torah's honor. And the Gemara concludes, no, he can forego the honor because the very act of acquiring Torah means that he made it his own, and therefore it's his honor, and he can forego it. So they learned this, the sages learned this from being precise with the words of Tehillim, of the first Psalm. Psalms chapter 1, verse 2. It says, "B'teiras Hashem cheftzei." The person wants to learn Teiras Hashem, the Teira of Hashem. L'basef nikras al shmei. But at the end of the very same verse, it says that the Teira becomes the person's. The halemed ubeteiras say yeget, that he toils in Teira, meditates in Teira, in his Teira. Teira say means his Teira, and his Teira means the person's Teira. So Vanman learned Teira blaze lemigaris. When somebody learns Teira just casually, just perusing the text, is detated nikras al shmei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, then it's still Hashem's Teira. Sie ist sich misjachas zum Neis in the Teira. So the Teira belongs to the giver of the Teira. B'shas aber es ist voran der Jäger iu in the Teira. But when you meditate, when you toil, when you focus in Teira, is nikras al shmei, then the Teira belongs to the person. Die Divrei Teira werden seine, wie bald is hat sie genommen durch sein Yegier chulu, because the person took the Teira through his toil. Teira dilehi, it becomes his Teira. Therefore, we can explain what did the Rebbe Rashab mean when he says, "I'm leaving you the Torah manuscripts." This is actually extremely appropriate to one of his major innovations in Eifen Gilu Teres Chassidus, in the manner in which Chassidic teachings were revealed. Was hat aufgetan, as the Asage in Pnimius HaTeira soll kennen sein, im Ganzen mit Zeitkeach Sichlei, die Mekabo v'Halemed, was nimmt die in Yonim HaNilmodim Kedelakamon. The Rebbe Rashab made it that you could take Hasidic concepts, which generally are mystical, spiritual ideas, generally things that you would say are too lofty and you have to just sort of take it on faith. And he really drove home to a new level, even more than the way Chabad was established from the very beginning. It was always this way. But the Rebbe Rashab took it to a whole new level. The idea that through intellectual effort, through study, a person could grasp these really lofty concepts and understand them on their own. End of chapter 3. So, just to summarize, we just studied in chapter 3. The difference between giving and leaving is everything is done by the giver, and the recipient doesn't have to do anything. But with leaving, so someone leaves something, the other party still has to pick it up, still has to make acquisition. And we see with Torah itself that there's the giving of the Torah and there's the leaving of the Torah. Leaving the Torah means, and Hashem makes it available for each person to take ownership of Torah, but you have to put in your own sweat equity for that to happen. And this is very appropriate to the style that the Rebbe Rashab taught in, which was that the Rebbe Rashab devoted himself to teaching lofty spiritual concepts in a way that a person can relate to them with their own mind. This was something that goes back to the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe started Chabad, Chochma Bina Das. And the idea of Chabad from the very inception of Chabad was that we can relate to esoteric concepts in an intellectual way. And not only we can, that we should, we must, that itself is the strongest connection, the best connection is through understanding things with our own mind. But the Rebbe Rashab took it to a whole new level of explaining Hasidic concepts in a very tangible way. I mean, it's funny to use the word tangible when you're talking about concepts which are inherently abstract. And of course, spiritual concepts are all inherently abstract. They're not material things. They're not things that you relate to with your five senses. Even imagining them with your mind is difficult to stretch of the imagination, because they're lofty ideas. But the Rebbe Rashab, he taught in such a way that these philosophical ideas shouldn't be mere philosophy. They should be something relatable. something that a person can say, I understand it, not just I ascribe, I proclaim some type of belief in it. Yes, it's true. How is it true? I couldn't explain it because it's too lofty, but I know it's true. No, that a person could actually explain it and relate to it and have their own words for it and their own examples and stories to bring it out, because it really becomes their own idea. They really take ownership over it. So we see here how appropriate it is that even in the last hours, the Rebbe Rashab spoke of the way that he is getting his Torah to you is not by giving it to you. In other words, giving you that data dump, where he does the download and now you have it. No, he's placing it within your reach, and now you've got to grab it and internalize it. Okay, let's do chapter 4. Chapter 4. Von die Chidushim Mikrim von dem Rebbe Nishma Seiden Yesh Lemer es ist gewähnt, is Yaskus von Yeshivas Teim Chetamim. One of the great innovations of the Rebbe Rashab was establishing the yeshiva called Teim Chetamim. On the 15th of Elul, Tafresh Nun Zayin, 56-57, that's 1897. Actually, 1897. A couple of weeks before Rosh Hashanah. The Rebbe Rashab established a yeshiva in Lubavitch called Teim Chetamim. Was der Uftu von der yeshiva is, and the point of that yeshiva continues to be, it still exists. What? As is eingestellt geworden in Sidrei Limud Yeshiva, a Seder von Limud Chassidus. That in the schedule of the day for the students, there were times for studying Chassidus, and that was a novel thing that did not exist before. It existed yeshivas that were primarily Chassidic, but that didn't mean that it was part of the actual curriculum. It was something people did on their own. But to make it part of the curriculum, to make it part of the daily schedule, that was an innovation of the Rebbe Rashab. Was ist der Chiddush von Limud Chassidus in der Misgeres von Yeshiva? What's the point, or what's novel about learning Chassidus within the framework of a yeshiva? Good question, right? I mean, what's the difference whether it's part of the daily official schedule or whether, you're just given free time to do it? The inyan von a yeshiva is limud Torah ba'ofen shel dibuk chaverim. The idea of a yeshiva is to learn Torah in a manner of camaraderie. It's an expression from Pirkei Avos. Pilpul ha-talmidim v'chulu, and also the astute questioning of the students. In other words, you could go study on your own. You can teach yourself, be self-taught. You can go online. Today, tons of Chassidus exists online. You can go learn by yourself. But a yeshiva means you're doing it in an environment where there is interaction between the students and the teachers. Was durch der Shakl v'tarye, and that leads to a conversation, a give and take, literally, chulu. Is men malabin mevara di sugya, you reach a greater clarity in the matter. Was men learned that you're learning, busy kum tereis klor lechol prateha, and then all the details come out clear. So that there's a certain clarity that one achieves when you study with peers and with teachers, and you're in an environment of discussion and questioning. So that is the special advantage of studying Chassidus. Of course, you could study on your own, but studying in a yeshiva means that there's this ongoing discussion, this give and take, and that promotes greater clarity. Weil derich ze hat der Rebbe Nishma Seidner eingeführt bin der zu Limit Teres Chassidus, als Chassidus soll gelernt werden auf a yeshivischen Eifen. So the Rebbe Rashab wanted that Chassidus should be studied in a yeshivish way. Wie hat gesagt, like he said, and it's taken from a letter of his son, the previous Rebbe, wie hat gesagt, like the Rebbe Rashab said, as will, as der Eifen Liman Achsidus soll sein, Kalimud Asugyes Begal Yeshiva. The Rebbe Rashab, when he described what he was trying to achieve, what he wanted his students and disciples to do, he said, I want that they should study Chassidus like they study a subject in the revealed aspects of Torah. Just like a person sits down and they study Talmudic law, that same level of focus and analysis and discussion and give and take, that's how they should be studying mystical concepts. Sometimes there's a sort of inherent, I don't want to call it intellectual laziness, but I guess I am. And it's a certain inherent intellectual laziness when it comes to studying mystical concepts, because at the end of the day, a person feels, in the worst case scenario, who knows how real these things are anyway? So, what's the big deal? Or even if they believe with all their heart, but okay, fine, but these are things that you just believe in. You don't really have to understand how they work. It's not for people like us to understand these things. So there's a certain intellectual laziness that Rebbe Rashab, but you wouldn't do that when you're studying Talmud. The whole point of studying Talmud is to understand what it is. You understand the case, then you understand the ruling, and then you understand for the basis for a different ruling, and the proofs that are given by each side, and the advantages of each proof, and the refutations of the proofs. The whole point is understanding how it works. And the Rebbe Rashab wanted that people should study Chassidus in that manner. He said, I want them to understand the concept in Chassidus like they understand the concept in Talmudic law. Und der Pfarr hat herangestellt dem Seder von Limud Chassidus in der Yeshiva. That's why he made Chassidus part of the Yeshiva curriculum. So the Chassidus should be studied in that manner. As man soll lernen, agudes, that you should learn in groups. Ja, der agudes soll lernen demselben Inyan Sugya, Chassidus bichdei, man soll sich durchreden, chulu. He wanted that you should learn in groups, so each group would be able to discuss it. They would be able to have the conversation in Chassidus, in dem Inyan. Bis as der Inyan wird klar werden bei die Leimdim lechol prata, weil derech dem Seder alimud von Gali de Teira. He wanted that he should be able to discuss it until it becomes clear. Was Hazah Eifen von Limud Pnimius HaTeira stellt mit sich and that innovation that the Rebbe Rashab introduced was truly a novelty compared to the way that everything had been done before that. There was the study of Chassidus for many generations. The Rebbe Rashab was the fifth Rebbe of Chabad. But to do it in a yeshiva setting where it would be discussed thoroughly and thereby reaching a certain mental clarity, that is something that the Rebbe Rashab innovated. End of chapter 4. How are we doing? Good? I don't see any questions or comments, so I'm assuming everybody's doing fine. Okay. Fine. Chapter 5. And just for everyone's information, there are 6 chapters in this Sicha. Oh, no, there's 7. Okay. So let's speed up a little bit. All right, chapter 5. In Friedrich's Manim is given a chiluk ikri zwischen Lieben Nigler Teiro and Limud Pnimius HaTeiro. In the times that were before, hold on, I'm getting my charger. In the times that were before the Rebbe Rashab, there was a fundamental difference between the way that mystical Hasidic teachings were taught, studied, and the way that legal Talmudic subjects were studied. Nigle de Teure ist gegeben geworden in den Efen, als der Seichel Anushi von der Nivre soll kennen Tefes sein, die Svores, the Seichel Teure. The legalistic aspects of Torah were given in such a manner that they lend themselves to human intellect understanding them. Right? Person can understand a case. This guy's cow got gored. This guy's ox. Now he wants damages. He wants him to pay money for it. That's something that a human mind can relate to. The Yafal Pivos Torah is Chachmasi Shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the Las Machshavet Tfisa Bey. Even though we know all of Torah is Hashem's wisdom, which no thought can grasp. Hat aber der Eibishter a Rab geniedert Chachmasi Yisborich be'efen, as Eich Seichel Anushi soll es kennen, begreifen, bis be'efen von Nikras al Shmei, as ver Torah say, Torah dilehi. Nevertheless, Hashem gave his Torah in such a manner, his Chachma, his wisdom in such a manner, that he put it into a form that human intellect can grasp it, to the extent that it even becomes the person's acquisition. That's when we're talking about the revealed part of Torah, the Talmudic, the legalistic. Masha'enken, in contrast, Pnimiyas HaTorah bleibt begiloi Torah's Hashem. The inner dimensions of Torah, the mystical teachings, that really remains Hashem's Torah. They're godly concepts. They're not normal concepts within the framework of human experience. You're talking about angels and spirits and spheroids and worlds. Those are not concepts that are, from regular human experience. In Gor Friedrich Aderes haben Rebbe Yisrael genommen die Inyanim mit Amune. In the old days, people just used to accept that all on faith. Sie gewen hecher von Seichel and Nivra, as soll haben in them a Tfisa. They used to say, look, this is too lofty, a person can't grasp it. Yesh leimer as zehu achad mit pirushim shem Kabbalah. The Rebbe says here, by the way, the word Kabbalah, we all know Kabbalah, Jewish mysticism, right? But what does Kabbalah really mean? Kabbalah means acceptance. It does. To be Mekabel means to accept. So the Rebbe says maybe that's one of the reasons that Kabbalah was called Kabbalah. As kumt be Kabbalah ish mepi ish. It was accepted one person from another. But the Rebbe is saying basically Kabbalah could also mean, okay, I accept it, right? Like, do you understand how this works? No, but I accept it. Right? Don't worry if I understand it. I accept it. I'll go along with it. It's an interesting thing. You never thought of that. The Rebbe says the word Kabbalah basically means the people's attitude toward Jewish mysticism is, yeah, it's okay. You don't have to explain it to me. I believe you. I'll go along with it. Interesting. And then there was a little bit of a change. There was a revolution. The Arizal, Rebbe Yitzchak Luria from Tzfas, he taught Kabbalah in a more open way, in a more explained way, in a way that was ultimately more accessible. I mean, still, if you look in the Kabbalah Arizal, it's very, very, very lofty stuff. But comparatively to the way it used to be done historically, where it was just, elite individuals, privileged individuals, the Arizal opened it up a lot. Wenn in Janem von Pnimiyas HaTorah seien nisparisch geworden in Efen bis es soll kennen sein Isparnussen. Man soll sie verstehen, nicht nur bei Efen von Girsbalma, seien sie aber nicht herabgetragen geworden bis zu Seichel Anushi, bis as soll sie kennen Tefes sein. So the Arizal did a lot in making the ideas of Kabbalah more accessible as a subject of study, but still not in a way that you relate to it the way you relate to regular human experience. Again, let me just repeat that when you study Talmudic law, you are using the same parts of your brain to a certain extent as you do when you go through day-to-day life, because it's talking about stuff that you can relate to. Whether it's keeping Shabbos, or it's about business dealings, or it's about the kashrus of food. These are all physical things, the things we relate to anyway. It's just giving a Jewish perspective on it. But Pnimius HaTorah is talking about stuff that we don't encounter, at least not consciously, in our day-to-day experience. Das ist verblieben Seichel Elaki. So even after the Arizal made a certain breakthrough, the ideas of Kabbalah remained not Seichel Anushi, but Seichel Elaki. Not human intellect, but godly intellect. Was can benommen werden nur mit dem Seichel von Nefesh Elakis. And you could really only grasp it with your godly soul, right? There are two souls, the godly soul and the animal soul. Welche is gettliche Seichel von der gettliche Neshama und kann teve sein die ruchnistische Inyanim was there in this war in Pnimius HaTorah. So really it's only the godly intellect of the godly soul can understand the godly concepts of this godly mysticism. And in brackets, wie ich leimer as der Fahr is nicht jeder hat gekent maßig sein die Inyanim. That's why, by the way, at that time, the Rebbe suggests that this is the reason why in that period, times of the Arizal, although there was a breakthrough and Chassidus became more, it wasn't called Chassidus at that point, but the inner dimensions of Torah became more available, but it was still not to everyone. It was still only certain people could do it. Only those with a high soul, with a loftier soul root. Und dazu noch, sich mezachach gewähnt, ki the boy of Klitzu is Galas Neshama. And also, not just people had a lofty soul, but people had done the proper amount of refinement to make themselves receptive to that type of godly intellect. Mashen kein die vachazayne nit mezuchachim or haben nit kein Neshama geveya, but people who weren't adequately refined and didn't have that lofty soul, haben nit gekent haben asagin Pnimius HaTorah. They didn't have the ability to understand the inner dimension of Torah. It just wasn't something that they could relate to. Was das is einer von die Asbaris in die Divrei Azayah as in Pnimius HaTorah is lest man like kushya chulu nit vi nigla de Torah. By the way, that's the Rebbe says that's one of the explanations of why the Zohar itself, the canon text of Kabbalah, Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai's text. It says over there that in Kabbalah there are no questions. A question is a question is an important device within Torah study. A question isn't challenging something in the sense of, oh, I don't believe it. A question is more like, no, I do believe it and I want to understand it better. When we question things, especially in Talmudic study, the whole idea is we're trying to get a better grasp of the topic. The Zohar says that there are no questions in Kabbalah. What does that mean? Akash is doch in an inyan von Helem v'Hester. A question means a concealment. A verstell of an emes von Torah. It means that something is covering, something is blocking the Torah's truth. Und der Rebbe, therefore, nigle de Torah, was is herabgekommen bei Even, a Seichel Anushi soll sie teif sein, is da in ihr kashes. So when you're studying the legalistic, the revealed aspects of Torah, you have questions. Things get covered up. The truth becomes concealed. Das heißt, die Kashe sein in a chelik von Torah gufa. And the questions themselves are part of Torah. Can we do become upon the raya ledavar? The Rebbe says, we've spoken about this many times. Afilo van einer vet velen lernen blaze a kashe in Torah. The Rebbe says, let's say theoretically, a person wants to just study a question in Torah, not the answer, just the question. Is there mechuyev levarich lefanao birkas haTorah? He has to make the blessings on Torah study. Why? Because even without the answer, the question itself is already Torah. Weil in Seichel Anushi kann sich nicht gleich ablegen der Seichel haTorah chachmasi yisbarach. Because the godly wisdom is not able, or let's flip it. The human wisdom doesn't immediately grasp the godly wisdom. Früher seien da in Seichel Anushi Kashes Chul, bis der Leimed Edelteis sein Seichel und is Eimed Alamitas HaTeira. And what has to happen is there's a process of self-refinement where the student refines his or her intellect to be able to ultimately grasp the godly truth. And that's when you're studying the legalistic aspects of Torah. However, when you're studying the mystical aspects, was is nit herabgetragen geworden im Seichel Anushi, which doesn't automatically lend itself to human intellect, nor blois fahren Seichel von Nefesh Elokis. It only lends itself to the intellect of the godly soul. Was beim Nefesh Elokis, like Torah, but by the godly soul, Torah is already illuminated. Is less man like kasha, so that there's no questions. So, in other words, what we're saying is that when you're studying the legal portions of Torah, you're using your regular mind, your human mind, and therefore you have questions because the godly truth in those legalistic principles is not always apparent. But if you use your human mind, you'll break through and you'll get to it. But with learning Kabbalah, it's not lending itself to human intellect anyway. You're anyway only using your godly soul's intellect. And your godly soul already gets it. So your godly soul already understands it. Your animal soul will never understand it. So what's the point of questioning? You hear that? Your godly soul already understands it. Your animal soul will never understand it. So then what's the point? And, by the way, you hear people still talk that way about Pnimius HaTorah, about spiritual ideas within Torah, right? I mean, they don't use those terminologies because godly soul and animal soul are themselves terminologies within Chassidus. But they say a similar argument, like if it's true, it's true. And my toiling to make it true doesn't make it true. And if I understand it, if I don't understand it already, then what's the point of learning it? Something that's, beyond my frame of reference. So, excuse me, sorry there. Okay. But what we're saying is that, this is the way that it was for hundreds of years, for thousands of years. That people had that sort of attitude toward Kabbalah that, like we said, that, look, my godly soul understands it already. My animal soul will never understand it. So what do I have to work at it for? Okay, that's the end of chapter 5. Let's go to chapter 6. Let's go to chapter 6. Okay. Noch mehr. Furthermore, es ist jedua, als der Uftu von alten Rebben B'teres HaChassidus Chabad befragt noch sein Geule bei Yud-Tes Kislev ist bestanden in dem, was hat malbisch gewähnt, die Inyanim von Pnimius HaTorah in Seichel Chabad, beäfen, als alle, viele nicht kein Musuchochem, Chutza, sollen es kennen, verstehen, mit sehr Seichel Anushi. We know one of the things that the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, accomplished, and particularly after his release from prison on Yud-Tes Kislev, was to present the inner dimension of Torah in a manner that the Chabad, the intellect of a person, even a regular person, should be able to receive it. And that this is part and parcel of Hafatzas Mayonas Chutza, what Mashiach, the soul of Mashiach, told the Baal Shem Tov, that Mashiach's coming is linked with the spreading of the wellsprings of the Baal Shem Tov's teachings, meaning Chassidus, outward in the Chutzah. Chutzah doesn't just mean geographically, the far reaches, far away lands, but Chutzah means internally, aspects of self that are foreign to godliness, that the Alter Rebbe wanted, the Alter Rebbe achieved, that not only should those parts of us which are already conducive to godly concepts, meaning the godly soul, but also the parts of us which are foreign, so to speak, to godly concepts, meaning our regular human minds, should also grasp these concepts. And that's what the Alter Rebbe accomplished. Aber afal pikein is das noch nit gewen in demselben Eifen wie Asagas Nigle de Torah. Nevertheless, even what the Alter Rebbe achieved, you couldn't say that he made it that studying Chassidus is exactly the same as the study of the legalistic portions of Torah. Seichel anushi mitzad atzmei hat nit gekent de greichen a hasage gemora in Pnimius HaTorah. Regular intellect on its own could not reach a full understanding of the inner dimensions of Torah. Says nor abeshas mehot im mazber given in Inyan in Pnimius HaTorah hat sich das bayam gekent ablegen. Rather, what happened is if you could explain a concept to someone, then they would be able to understand it. It's not that the human intellect became able to grasp these concepts. It's just that, like, look, there's no way of explaining it. There's no way of connecting to these concepts, right? That's the way it was for a long time. Then there's, no, you can understand it on your own. And then there's, well, you couldn't understand it on your own, but if somebody explained it to you, then you could understand it. In brackets, the Rebbe says, "Bedugma via Rav, was lernt mit der Talmud, a tiffen Seichel, was is nit migeder as der Talmud mitzat atzmei soll es kennen massig sein." The Rebbe says an example. A teacher gives over a concept to a student that is categorically, it's just beyond the student's ability to come up with that idea on his own. Just the student is never going to come to that idea on his own. Was afilu nochdem wie der Rav is das im Masbir. Even after the teacher explains it to the student and the student gets it, can the Talmud nit gefinnen eigene Esies chulu wie zum Masbir sein dem Seichel. The student is not going to be able to come up with his own words for the concept. You see, it's a concept that the student could never have come up with on his own. But if the teacher would teach it to him, the student could understand. Okay, so then what's the difference? If in the end the student also understands? No, the difference is that even after the student understands, he won't be able to say it in his own words, because it's still fundamentally beyond him. He didn't make it his own yet. Und das ist gewähnt der Chiddush von der Rebbe Nishmas Eden. This was the innovation of the Rebbe Rashab. Was hat herabgetragen die Inyanim von Pnimius HaTorah bei Eifen als die Asage in See soll können sein in demselben Eifen wie Asages Nigle de Torah. The Rebbe Rashab made it that a person could relate to mysticism with the same approach that you relate to legalistic aspects of Torah. Punkt wie Nigle de Torah is galui fahren Seichel enushi bei Eifen as Horevet in dem wie in a Seichel Gashmi. Just like the legalistic portions of the Torah, you can work on them to relate to them, just like you would a physical thing, meaning an idea that is, has that you can relate to physically. In demselben Eifen soll Seichel Anushi sich das Yageya sein in Pnimius HaTorah, that the same exact way of approaching a concept should be available for approaching spiritual ideas. In brackets, Bidugma via Rav was tragt herab dem Seichel amok zum Talmud, beefen as der Talmud kann der noch sich misjageje sein, wie sie besichlei, hu ungefinnen eigene Esies was boreis, wie zu reisgeben dem Seichel. So this is like we said earlier, a teacher who teaches something to a student that the student could never discover on his or her own. And then even after it was given over to the student couldn't say it in their own words. But and that's what it used to be like. But what did the Rebbe Rashab do? He made it like when a teacher teaches a student, an idea that the student could never have come up with on their own. But the teacher gives it over in such a way that then the student is able to go and analyze it independently and get to a point where the student can then say it in their own words. You see the difference there? Yes, it had to be facilitated. But along with the facilitation was another type of facilitation, not just the data dump of giving the information, but giving it over in such a way where the student can then understand how it works, why it works, and then be able to explain it ultimately in words that they did not hear from the teacher. And wie me zet es in die Maimori Chassidische Lei, dieselben Jahren, welche werden es waren in die Maimorim von den Sicha Batschlefonov, kommen in sein Maimorim mit Arichas Dikas Borim Chulu. Interesting. We see with the Rebbe Rashab that in his Maimorim, in his discourses, he was explaining concepts that were already explained by the previous Rebbeim, but he was explaining it at greater length and with greater explanation. And that's essentially what the Rebbe is saying, the Rebbe Rashab was doing, is he was taking ideas that had been around for generations, meaning he was the fifth Rebbe of Chabad already, but he was bringing it down in a way that was even more relatable to human intellect. The Eid Zeis, and furthermore, the Artzois Vesboris Hadvorim is in a signon Vasechel Anushi Kendos Masber sein. His explanations were in a signon, in a language that human intellect can explain. Mit seiner Asius, begreifen, with human language and human concepts. Al derech wie es neemt de davar seichel von Nigla de Torah. Just the same way that you can understand a concept in the legalistic portion of Torah. Und der Fahr hat der Rebbe nicht mal sein Medaike, wenn belashene diksav mulazichach. That's why the Rebbe Rashab said, I'm leaving you the manuscripts of Hasidic teachings. Weil das ist von die Uftun, von sein Exovim. Because that was one of the main things that his teachings, his manuscripts accomplished. As seichel anushi shelo adam ken zei nemen. That a person's human intellect should be able to grasp and take ownership of the ideas until it belongs to the student. So that's why he said, I'm leaving you these teachings. End of chapter 6. Okay, let's do understanding them. People will all be great. So when Mashiach comes, we'll all have this deep understanding, not just faith, understanding of godly matters. We can already begin to do that through studying Chassidus Chabad, especially the way that Rebbe Rashab presented it in such a